Well, that was rubbish, weren't it? Well, flipping. They were okay in the first half. Yeah, they were okay in the first half. They absolutely dominated the first 45 minutes. I think they had like 81% possession. They really did have Stoke on the back foot. It was just they they had one big chance. Colin Kazim-Richards tries to take it around the goalkeeper, and it's a really, really good clearance. I just wonder if the defender should be given that opportunity to clear the ball. If Colin maybe tries to slide it under the goalkeeper and into the far corner there. But look, I mean, he took it around the goalkeeper. It's just a really good clearance from, I think is it Chester that gets there and gets it away from off the line. So yeah, fair enough. I thought in the main, generally, like they put in some good crosses. Lee Buchanan especially put in some good crosses, but they weren't gambling with bodies in the box the way that they had done in previous games, and that became a little bit of an issue. And I think I disagree with the Totally Derby County lads on Twitter, but I understand partly their reasoning, but I also think they did get a little bit lucky. So there's a cross in the first half, 36 minutes. There's a cross from down the right, and Stephen Fletcher is so open that he actually thinks he's offside, and the flag never goes up, and he miscontrols it, and it rolls out. Now, it's poor technique, and the guys made the point. It is poor technique. He's right, but in my opinion, him thinking he's offside mentally means he triggers off and switches off, and therefore doesn't control it because he's not concentrating. But that was a let-off for Derby. That was a big let-off for them, because I think it was the only thing really that stopped. The only thing really that Stoke created. They had a decent showing in the first 10 minutes, and Derby were holding on. But really, it wasn't. Like Stoke didn't really test David Marshall at all. Matt Clark had a chance in the second half that he probably should have done with. But the positives, as Thomas just pointed out in the comments, is that is now 3 clean sheets on the spin. That's the first time that has happened since January 2018 under Gary Rowett, when actually they went 4 on the bounce and got 4 clean sheets there. That's a real positive. They never had back-to-back ones under Koku, and again they've not had 3 in a row since Rowett. So that's a positive. Who'd have thought that Man United and England's all-time top goal scorer would turn up and Derby would struggle to score but be really solid defensively? Weird. But a positive, but that sterner tests will come than Stoke, and it was an injury-ravaged Stoke as well. Sterner tests will come. They've got Swansea coming up next. That's going to be a big game. Swansea are playing really well at the moment. That's going to be a big game. And Rotherham away. These are 2 big games. At some point, they have to just start winning at home. It's okay. Like, they're unbeaten in, 5 now? Yeah, that's unbeaten in 5 under Rooney. Wickham, Coventry, Millwall, Brentford, this one. So that's unbeaten in 5. But at some point, they have to start stacking wins. Winning 1 in 5 will not get them out of the position that they're in. They have to start stacking wins. But it's a positive. The Morgan Whittaker substitution, as someone has mentioned in there, was interesting. Now, obviously, there are sort of multiple layers to this. One of them is it's bold management from Wayne Rooney to take off Morgan, who wasn't playing well. Because you need to go and win the game. And those people are right. It is bold management. And there is also another side to this, that it was actually the worst, not the worst, but the wrong decision at the time. It's also an admission that he made the wrong substitution. And again, tactically in game, if you're doing that, yes, it's bold. It's a bold call. But you're also admitting that your change didn't work. And that's on the manager as well. Whittaker didn't play well. I thought he'd earned his minutes, and I think I said in another video, I think he's earned his minutes every time he comes off the bench, seems to do something. But he is still wildly inconsistent. And at the moment, the situation that Derby find themselves in, they can't be inconsistent with individuals. Whittaker in the second half was getting beat down his side defensively, and it was an issue for them. And it probably was the right decision to take him off, but it was probably the wrong decision to bring him on in the first place. It felt a bit odd. Jordan Ibe was never going to be able to do an hour. He just wasn't. He did 8 minutes, and then even in the warm down, he was doing his own warm down routine with another fitness trainer. I know people want to see him. I really know that they're excited for him. But there are a couple of things here with Jordan Ibe. Unless you watched him extensively at Bournemouth, a lot of people are basically basing what he will bring to this team based on what he brought last time, and that's not fair. That was 5 years ago. Team's different. He's different as a player and as a person. He is different, and the division's different. The Bournemouth game, his time at Bournemouth was not great. So if you're basing it off that, it's hard to get excited for that version of Jordan Ibe. We just need to be patient. Let's just see what we get with it. But it's encouraging that he made another squad. Look, 3 benches in a row. And Rooney said in the first 2, he was basically as the emergency guy, like if they really needed him. So 3 benches in a row, and this time he gets on for 8 minutes. Great. That's a good positive step in the right direction. That's all you can ask. I think honestly, if you're honest with yourself, that's all you can ask, is that at least he's not out of the squad. At least he's not picked up another injury. He's not going that way. He's going upwards. He's going this way. So yeah, that's good. Waghorn would probably have been, if you're after someone to help maybe defensively, because Stoke were never going to be as bad as they were in the first half, or it was going to be hard to be. Waghorn would have probably been the change. But it's interesting now what they do with Whittaker. I imagine after that he will probably maybe go back down to the 23s, not as a punishment, but just to be like, keep your head down a little bit and put your arm around, and we'll bring you back in maybe after Christmas for the Boxing Day game at Preston or something, and go again. There are a couple of interesting things tactically, and by interesting I don't mean them in a good way. The first one is Martin Waghorn. I charted on 3 separate occasions he was being shouted at to come back outside because he kept drifting inside, and there was one moment where I can't remember exactly how it happened, but it culminated in Nathan Byrne having the ball and just so much space out on the right, but Waghorn had drifted inside, and the coaching staff were basically just all pointing at this massive void and this massive bit of green grass where he should have been and he wasn't. That's a problem, and he doesn't seem to be playing with a lot of confidence at the moment. Again, a couple of balls seemed to bounce off him, didn't seem to be able to hold things up, didn't really get into the game, didn't really get going. I can't remember anything of any real note that he did. He doesn't look fully confident right now, and that's a shame, because I think he is. I always have maintained that he is a very underrated player for Derby. He was their joint top goal scorer last year. Should he have had more? Yes. Did he admit that he should have had more? Yeah. But I've always thought he's underrated, but he's struggling right now. Another interesting tactical thing is Jason Knight. Now, I tweeted this sort of halfway through the first half. He is playing a number 10 role, he is playing number 10 in the team only. Like, that's in position only, that's all he's playing. The duties that he carries out are not that of a number 10. He plays still like an 8. And you can get away with that, I think, when you're dominating possession and you keep winning the ball back and recycling, and you have this sort of flurry of 10, 15, 20-minute spells of absolutely dominating the ball and putting all these crosses in. You can get away with that. When things happen like they do in the second half, where Stoke get back into it and Derby stagnate a bit, you see that he's not a 10. He isn't a 10. He's an 8. He needs to play as an 8. But they've got 3 players for 2 positions, because Bielik's playing really well right now. 4 players for 2 positions, Bielik's playing really well right now. Wayne Rooney is obviously a massive, massive fan of Max Bird. Graham Shinney is playing really well. Obviously, he was suspended today because of the 5 cards. But it's a Christmas hat. It's not a Forest hat. It's a Christmas hat. I'm Santa. And Santa isn't a Forest fan. He wouldn't do that to himself. And then obviously Knight as well. So it's just, they've got four guys for 2 positions, and that balance is fair. But Jason needs to play deeper for me, in my opinion, because he's not someone that's going to unlock a defence. Now, the hope is maybe once Ibe is ready to start games, that you've got Ibe, Uzviak, Lawrence, Holmes, who was dropped today. I thought dropping him from the squad was harsh, but I don't think he deserved to start the game. I thought he was poor against Brentford, and I thought his final ball was pretty poor against Millwall. But I thought in this game, this felt like a game where maybe he could have had an impact, in the second half. But I agree with the decision to not start him, but I thought dropping him from the squad was maybe a bit harsh. But hey, there's a lot of games coming up, so I'm sure he'll get his minutes back. So yeah, the penalty decision or the non-penalty drop ball, dive, whatever you want to call it, one of the strangest decisions that I think I've seen in football. And I say that only being 28, not seen a lot of football generally speaking. Well, that was so weird because you either have to send Lee off or you give the penalty. They're the only two options. Now, to me, if there was a crowd there, in my opinion, he 100% gives that. 100% he gives that if the crowd is there. Mentally, I think mentally he wouldn't have stopped and pulled up like that and tried to sort things out. I don't know what was going through his mind when he made the decision it was a drop ball. I think it's fair to say that, and I don't like using the term bottled it, but I think it's fair to say the ref saw his arse a little bit there and didn't quite know what to do, because I found that to be a fucking baffling decision. And I don't like ragging on the refs because their job is really difficult. And their job, like anyone's job, is a game of opinions in football. It's, that's what, ironically, VAR could have been, this is what you want VAR for. But even that, it's just some guy watching the thing again. So it's not like it's this android making all these decisions. Just someone sat there in front of a monitor like me. I am VAR. So yeah, that was such a weird decision. Lawrence's injury is an ankle problem. They're not too sure about that just yet. They'll get an assessment on that. I won't be around to tell you about that because I am off. But yeah, so I want to give props to Lawrence actually because he played through the pain barrier. And that was good to see. Like, he really tried to play through that pain barrier and go again and try to really grit it out. And that, you want that kind of attitude and mentality in the situation that Derby find themselves in. I think he couldn't go, and I think it was a good idea to almost save him from himself because he could have aggravated the problem. But also, he had a really good sort of 20 minutes as well, half an hour before he had to come off. He played well. His crosses were good. He had a shot that was really rasping and had to be tipped over. And he made a couple of really good runs. They couldn't find him, and they were asking Christian Bielik to do a lot of the defence splitting passes, but from sort of 15 yards further back than where a number 10 would, because Jason Knight isn't that guy. And that became a problem in the second half, in my opinion. So they couldn't, the runs were being made, but because the ball was coming from so deep, it's harder to just get and click and sync with those. So yeah, let's get to your questions. They have been filling up nicely. On the managerial situation, can you tell me / us where the club are in the interview process? Yes. So the interview process is underway. I think the final say. Now, I put this in one of my Rooney pieces. I think the last one after the Brentford game. If this setup was deemed stable enough to sack Cocu or to part ways with Cocu and arrange a mutual agreement, surely it has to be deemed stable enough to hire another manager. Now, I know managers have been making their pitches for the job. I don't know. I don't have names. I just know that their pitches have been made for the job, but I have no names. So I know the process. Like, they've seen candidates. I know that process. I know that they've seen candidates. But as to where a decision lies, it lies with the takeover because those guys will be making the final say. My understanding is that Mel Morris is going to stay on at the club as a consultant, but he will have no actual power anymore. So yeah, in terms of the takeover, it's difficult. No one wanted to talk this week, and it's suspiciously quiet. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you fresh on that. That you can say that's me not doing my job. I tried to do my job, but no one wanted to talk to me. No one wanted to speak to me. No one wants to return my calls. No one wants to return my emails. And if you ask, it's generally no comment. The people that do pick the phone up just say no comment. So that's difficult. And obviously, I won't be around next week to monitor that. With takeovers, and then we're into Xmas January. What's the plan? How do we plan for January in these circumstances? Good question, Chris. If this is still Mel Morris's club in January, I would suspect the club wouldn't do much in January. I just don't think they'd do anything. I don't think financially right now the club are in a position to do that much, to be honest. Maybe they go. Oh no, I tell a lie. Maybe they go back in for Dursun because they do want him. The current ownership want him. So if the current ownership is still here in January, they'll probably go back in for Dursun. But around outside of that, don't really know. We've now moved to 5 games unbeaten. Yeah, that is true, Kieran. But it's 4 draws. You can't keep winning 1 in 5. That is not going to keep you out of the relegation zone winning 1 in 5. 4 draws, so you'll keep on picking up points and all right, 3 clean sheets. That Stoke team were there for the taking. That I don't believe that's a point gained, if I'm honest. I believe that's 2 drops. That Stoke team were there for the taking. There are positives. Don't get me wrong. I've outlined the positives, but overall, that should have been a dub. Like, if we're honest, that should have been a dub. That should have been a win. What's your take on? Oh yes, Nav. Yep, answered that. So we're all good. What else we got? Yeah, Whittaker needs to go to the under-23s. Yeah, I think probably that is his next stop. And watching him for the under-23s, he's brilliant. He is a really, really good player. He has so much freedom. I think they don't ask him to defend as much there either. They don't ask him to defend as much at the 23s. That helps. Assignment-wise, picking up your fullback, knowing positioning-wise, where you're moving inside, outside, all that stuff is difficult. You see it with Juzwiak. Juzwiak is still struggling with his positioning in terms of inside, outside, where you're showing your marker off the ball. If that player were to receive the ball, where do you show him? Do you show him inside, outside, depending on where you're at in relation to the pitch? He's struggling with that. And Juzwiak is an established-ish player, having played at first team level. Now, even he's only 23. So yeah, it's difficult for the young lads to take on, and maybe at 23s for Whittaker is the next best thing. Colin Kazim-Richards has been great, but today wasn't his best game. Do you think we need some space to try? I think, Nav, the problem that I think they've encountered is that they're not getting bodies close to him like they were in the first couple of games. Now he isn't winning as many aerial duels as he was the first couple of games, but they're also not getting bodies close to him like they were in those 2 games, and the runners aren't pinging around and pinging off him like they were. They seem to. What they've seemed to do more now is they want Bielik to try and open pockets up or open passes up and stretch them horizontally, vertically down the pitch. Now, Colin isn't going to do that because he's not fast, so he can't do that. He's admirable. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not that he is slow, but he's not Jack Marriott, for example, who really does have a good burst of pace across 5 yards that can get you in trouble. Colin needs a ball. He needs to win it, and then he needs sort of 2, maybe 3 options just in and around him to lay one off and then spin him behind. So yeah, it wasn't his best game. The Brentford game, all things considering, I thought he did okay because again, that Brentford line was absurd in terms of how high it was, and he was just squeezed in between a high line and a midfield that was dropping slightly deep, and they basically made sure to suffocate him to make sure he didn't get any service. But yeah, I think in general what they have to do is the next step is to try and get back to getting bodies around him and again working the ball out wide quicker to get bodies in the box and put the cross in. But they need to address his creativity in the whole. They really do. Jason does a brilliant job, but he's an 8. I don't think he's a 10. Doesn't have that moment, that something to unlock a defence. That eye to slide the ball down the side here, to a little reverse pass there, a little flick around the corner there. I don't think Jason has that. That's not to say he won't maybe unexpectedly develop it, but right now I think he's functional, and I think he's a great box-to-box midfielder. But I don't think he's a 10. I think he's an 8 moonlighting and masquerading as a 10. But yeah, so, went off topic there. But yeah, with Colin, he's okay. But yeah, they need bodies around him, and they need better quality crosses, and he does need to win more duels as well. What's your Santa's wishes? 3 points for Derby and for them to score more than 1 goal. If they beat Preston 3-0 at home, I'll die a happy man, I promise. I got morbid. What is Mel doing staying on as a consultant? Nav, it is mainly because Mel knows the Championship and the guys buying the club don't. You need someone that knows that division, not just the teams in the division. You need someone that knows the EFL and how they operate. You need someone that knows how the owners operate. Now, you can say, people might say, well, Mel will fill their head with all these ideas, but like, you know, he's been around and he's had his battles with the EFL. He's won his battles with the EFL. You know, he knows what he's doing in that setting. You need someone to advise, and he's been there. You know, he's not going to have any official power. All he can do is have his say. And you know, these guys are, you know, their assets are worth $1 billion. They didn't get those assets being weak-willed. So even no matter how strong Mel's say is, they'll still make the call. Last couple before we wrap up. Suggests a need for Marriott or Stretton, then maybe. Will, yeah. Marriott is going to be ready probably the second week of January. He's going to be ready for. He's been in the stands the last couple of games, last couple of home matches. He's been there. So yeah, I imagine he'll be recalled. Tony Pulis hasn't really been sort of enthusiastic about getting him back, and I think Wayne would quite like him back. So yeah, I think they'll address that in January. I think he'll be a Derby player. You just want him to try and get a good run of games under his belt. Because again, if they are going to play those balls through the middle and that Brentford high line as well, there were moments where you watched the last couple of games and think they were tailor-made for Marriott to run in beyond and behind them. Lawrence as a 10, yeah, maybe. I am titillated by the idea of Ide, Lawrence and Juzwiak across a three behind a striker. I think it's got scope for a lot of rotation. It also has scope to get needlessly complicated. But yeah, I think that would titillate me. Ryan, if you could poach one... Oh, Ivan Toney without even thinking about it. Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney came up from Peterborough, and he is the best striker in the division. And in my opinion, I don't think it's really that close. Oh no, Ivan Toney from another champion. Well, Ivan's at Brentford. Ivan's at Brentford, and he's got 14. But yeah, he's a great player. Any news on Davis? Regan, yeah. Last question. Yes, they aren't optimistic at all. They said it's his Achilles. He's seeing a surgeon and a specialist, so that's not good. And then they're going to see what Davis needs to be have done to him. Maybe it's not surgery, but it kind of sounds like surgery. And Wayne said he's expecting him to be out long term, so that's not good either. So yeah, none of that's good. You hope they've not said season ending; they've said long term. So maybe if you're looking at December, January, February, March, if you're looking at 4 months, that's April. Gives him a little bit of time to get back fit and get back in the fold, because his contract's up at the end of the year as well. He's going to be 36. So any little chance. So yes, maybe a centre-back is needed in January, although Mike Taveric is just kicking round. Mike Taveric was at the Pride Park today in his street clothes with Shinnie and Marriott in the stands. But yeah, so maybe now this is Taveric's opportunity. But yeah, that is a bummer for Davis. But yeah, like I said, it said long term, but not season ending. And obviously, that language might not feel very different, but you know, it can be, because long term can be 4 months, and that isn't the end of the season. So, you know, complex. Look, guys, I am off. I will be off social media. The only time you'll see me post on Twitter over the next week is to post an article. I have an article on Colin Kazim-Richards going live for the week that I'm off. A big long read about his career. Some people saying some stuff about his time in Brazil, and then there's a little bit of stuff about the Brighton case. So yeah, there's a big long read on Colin going up next week. I've got some other bits and bobs going up next week, which I can't remember, so that's probably not good. But yeah, I will be off for a week. The next time I will be around, hopefully Derby have beat Swansea and Rotherham. Look, you all enjoy your week. Yes, thank you all very much. And I will speak to you next week. Take care, guys. Look after you and yours. And what are we now, like 2 weeks till Christmas? So I hope you're all feeling the Christmas cheer and the Christmas spirit and the Christmas holidays, like me and my big stupid hat. Cheers, guys. Take care of yourself. Bye.